Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin our program. Be grateful if we could have silence, please. Everyone sit, please. Please be seated. All, please rise to greet our guest of honor, His Excellency, the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping. Please be seated. Now, to begin our program, please allow me to introduce the next speaker, Mr. Mark Casper, Chairman of the U.S. China Business Council and Chairman, President, and CEO of Thermo Fisher Scientific. Mark, thank you for kicking us off this evening.
Thank you, Craig. Good evening, Excellencies, ladies, and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us as we welcome His Excellency, President Xi Jinping, President of the People's Republic of China. Welcome back to the United States, Mr. President. I also would like to welcome U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. As Craig mentioned, I serve as the Chairman of the U.S. China Business Council and have been a board member for many years. And the company I lead, Thermo Fisher Scientific, has been a proud member of the Council for more than a decade. The business leaders who formed this group understand that we are stewards of a relationship that is historic in its importance. And for half a century now, the Council has worked to further strengthen the relationship to benefit the people of both countries and society overall. This purpose aligns with Thermo Fisher's mission to enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. We have more than 125,000 employees worldwide, 78,000 of which are in the APEC economies, with the vast majority in the U.S. and China. They all come to work each day inspired to make a difference in our world. During our 40-year history in China, we've partnered with Chinese companies and the government to improve air quality, advance healthcare, and ensure food safety. And American companies like Thermo Fisher have been at the forefront of China's modernization, the benefits of which are eminently clear today. In return, according to the Council, the U.S.-China commercial relationship supports more than 1 million American jobs, contributing to the success of American companies and the communities that we live in. Along with the tremendous benefits of trade and investment, there are certainly challenges, including the prevailing political dynamics. As we manage those dynamics, we seek stability and predictability in the business environment. Given the opportunity to compete fairly, we will continue to propel innovation and contribute to the prosperity in the U.S., in China, and around the globe. Mr. President and Secretary Raimondo, the U.S. business community strongly supports productive government-to-government dialogue and progress in the relationship. Stated simply, we support open markets, fair competition, and innovation. This goal can be achieved while protecting the national security interests of each nation. We firmly believe that continued economic growth in the United States and China is essential to global stability. We have an obligation to collaboratively address areas of great global need, including climate change, public health, and narcotics control. I must pause here to note that each of these imperatives is underpinned by scientific innovation. Mr. President and Secretary Raimondo, thank you for being with us this evening and for your support for this bilateral economic relationship. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce the Honorable Gina Raimondo, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, to deliver her remarks. Madam Secretary, thank you for being a strong and constructive partner to the American business community and for your contributions to the stability of the U.S. China relationship.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you and good evening. And thank you to all of the hosts who have brought us together this evening. And special welcome to President Xi. Welcome back to San Francisco. We are delighted to have you here this evening and so pleased that we're able to host you. And thank you for your delegation and for a very productive meeting this afternoon at Woodside. The U.S. is, of course, very proud to be hosting APEC this year. When the President took office, he came to us, his team, and he said he had two key priorities. Number one, to reinvest in America, and number two, to re-engage internationally. Through the Infrastructure Act, through the CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, we are indeed investing in America, making historic investments in America, our people, our infrastructure, our technology, our clean energy transition. The strategy was to make some public sector investment that would draw forward a great deal of private sector investment. And that strategy is working. Large-scale investments in semiconductor and clean energy production are up about 20-fold in the United States since 2019, and we've created more than 14 million jobs as a result. So the early results are quite spectacular. And we're engaging in the world, engaging internationally through APEC and directly with China. Earlier today, I was honored to join the Woodside Summit between President Biden and President Xi. Two men have, of course, known each other for a long time, have developed a rapport, and this, in fact, was their 7th interaction in President Biden's administration. Now, of course, we all know that we have differences, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. That being said, President Biden has been very clear that while we compete with China and other countries, we do not seek conflict, we do not seek confrontation, and we seek to de-escalate the tension. In fact, I would argue the world requires us to manage this relationship responsibly and to find ways to resolve our bilateral disputes, to coordinate on regional and global issues, and to deliver on transnational challenges like climate change and global health that affect people around the world. Working together towards these goals reduces the risk in this relationship. And in order to do that, the foundation of that is direct, open, candid communication. And I want you all to know that that is exactly what happened today between President Xi and President Biden. Direct, open, candid communication. And because of it, we made progress today. We agreed to restart cooperation on illicit fentanyl to reduce the flow of precursor chemicals to drug cartels. I promise you this will save American lives, and thank you, President Xi, for your coordination and collaboration on that. Prior to this job, I was the governor of Rhode Island, and I attended far too many funerals of people in their 20s who had overdosed and died. This cooperation will save American lives. We agreed to resume military-to-military and defense communication. Through these channels, we will manage tensions, avoid miscalculation, and prevent conflict. I think every business person in this room should have a bit more confidence that we're resuming the mill-to-mill communication because we're managing the risk in this relationship and bringing more stability to the relationship. And we agreed to work together more closely on artificial intelligence. Now, the principles that govern the overall relationship, of course, underpin our economic relationship. We have to protect what we must, but we will promote where we can. We have as Mark just said, we have a large, consequential, significant economic relationship with China that sustains over 1 million jobs here in America. We want to trade with China. We want robust trade with China on a level playing field that is reciprocal and that is fair. We want that with all of our large trading partners. In fact, many in the U.S. business community, I'd say all of you here this evening, remain keenly interested to do business in China and to find ways to advance our bilateral economic relationship. I know that because half of you have come to see me to tell me that. But this is a fact, and President Biden said this today to President Xi. A growing China that plays by the rules in a level playing field, as Mark said, is a good thing. It's in all of our interest. We want to see China's people do well. We want to see the Chinese economy prosper. We want to see Chinese people have economic prosperity. And as I said, trade between our two countries creates economic opportunity here in the United States. As we try to meet our shared global challenges from climate to global health to food security, it's clear that effectively tackling these challenges will also require you in this room, the private sector. The private sector must contribute through capital, innovation, cutting-edge technology, and new products if we are to solve the challenges that I just mentioned. And by fostering healthy economic competition and leveraging our private sector, we will deliver commercial solutions to these shared challenges. Now, obviously, Mark mentioned national security. Our priority, indeed China's priority, is to protect our own national security and defend our system of values. Bolstering our economic and national security requires us to diversify our supply chains, especially for critical goods, invest in our own industrial base, and adopt targeted, narrow, precise protections to protect our most sensitive technology, quite frankly, so it can't be used against us. That being said, I want to be very clear. The vast majority of our trade and investment relationship with China does not involve national security concerns, and we are committed to promoting reciprocal trade and investment in those areas. And I think that's a very important message. For that to happen, obviously, we need to make progress in addressing the concerns of U.S. businesses, as Mark said, but I think we can do that. There are concerns, but through candid and direct diplomacy, like what I saw and participated in today at Woodside, with hard work and good faith, we will make progress on these issues. And I look forward to working with my Chinese counterparts, like Minister Wang, who's here this evening, and with you in industry to resolve the economic issues that divide us so that we can develop a path forward that will deliver a safe and prosperous future for both of the people of both of our countries and contribute, in so doing, to global peace and stability. This economic relationship can be a ballast for the rest of the relationship and contribute to global stability. I want to end with this. When I was in Shanghai this summer, I had the opportunity to spend time at NYU's Shanghai campus. And I spoke there with college students from China, Chinese students, and U.S. students studying together, shoulder to shoulder in this classroom in Shanghai. They were optimistic. They were curious. They were candid. They asked me tough questions, actually. But I am hopeful. Being with them, seeing their candor and curiosity and hope for the future gives me hope. Quite frankly, it gives me hope that with candid discussion, being practical, and working together and keeping lines of communication open, that we together can build a foundation upon which those young people can build. And that's the work before us and the work that I am eager to do by engaging with my Chinese counterparts. So thank you, Mark. A special thank you to President Xi. And I would now like to call to the podium Evan Greenberg to introduce our guest, President Xi of China.
Thank you, Secretary Raimondo, for those welcoming comments, and thank you for your leadership. Good evening. I am Evan Greenberg, Chair of the National Committee on U.S. China Relations and the CEO of Chubb Insurance. Tonight, I am honored to welcome President Xi Jinping. It is fitting that we gather in San Francisco to hear from President Xi. This city is where he first touched American soil nearly 4 decades ago. In the decades since, much has changed. China has lifted hundreds of millions of its citizens out of poverty. The country has emerged as a great power with influence on the world stage. New patterns for the U.S. China relationship have emerged while others have evolved. Leader-level interaction continues to set the tone for relations. Deep interdependence has developed between both our countries, and connections have formed across a broad spectrum of our populations between students, scholars, scientists, farmers, and business people. These connections have infused vitality and ballast into the relationship. Today's meeting between President Biden and President Xi provided a powerful example of their shared support for mutual respect and engagement. Both leaders recognize that engagement is not a form of surrender. It does not mean we have to admire each other. Engagement is how relationships are built and knowledge is shared. It is how people in both countries acquire the understanding about each other and how trust is developed at a personal level. Ultimately, governments and institutions do not give energy to the relationship. People do. It's not surprising that our two governments face major challenges in our relationship. After all, our two countries have different cultures, histories, visions, ambitions, and systems of government. No leader can be expected to solve these differences, but they should responsibly manage them. Acknowledging our need for peaceful coexistence is not an act of charity or a sign of weakness. It is a wise recognition of reality. The United States and China are and will remain the two most powerful countries in the world for the foreseeable future. As the world's two most capable countries both benefit from collaborating to address global challenges, and both are harmed by ceaseless confrontation. Solutions to threats from war, disease, famine, global warming, artificial intelligence, and proliferation are much more within our reach when the United States and China are pulling in the same direction than when they are splitting apart. It was very good to see President Biden and President Xi move down that path today. It was their first contact since they met a year ago in Bali. The leaders of the world's two strongest powers need to engage more frequently with each other. The immense global challenges of our time demand that our leaders show statesmanship and shared purpose. Like many others in this room, I believe that a strong and prosperous China that supports and invests in the international system can be a force for good in the world. Ultimately, the trajectory of China's rise will be determined far more by the choices China makes for itself than by any decisions others make about it. So we are gathered today to gain insight from President Xi into his vision for the future of his country and of the relationship between the United States and China. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming President Xi Jinping.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, it gives me great pleasure to meet with you, friends from across the American society in San Francisco, to renew our friendship and strengthen our bond. My first visit to the United States in 1985 started from San Francisco. And this formed my first impression of this country. Today, I still keep a photo of me in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. This morning, President Biden pulled out this photo and he showed it to me. I don't know how he got it, but he showed it to me. Well, before I go any further, I wish to express my sincere thanks to the National Committee on U.S. China Relations, the U.S. China Business Council, the Asia Society, the Council on Foreign Relations, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and other friendly organizations for hosting this event. I also want to express my warm greetings to all American friends who have long committed to growing China-U.S. relations, and my best wishes to the friendly American people. San Francisco has borne witness to exchanges between the Chinese and American peoples for over a century. 158 years ago, a large number of Chinese workers came all the way to the United States to build the first transcontinental railroad. They also established in San Francisco the oldest Chinatown in the Western Hemisphere. From here, China and the United States have made many achievements: $760 billion of annual bilateral trade, and over $260 billion of two-way investment. $284 pairs of sister provinces, states, and sister cities, and over 300 scheduled flights every week, and over 5 million travels every year at peak time. These extraordinary accomplishments were made jointly by our peoples, accounting for nearly 1/4 of the global population. San Francisco has also borne witness to the efforts by China and the United States in building a better world. 78 years ago, after jointly defeating fascism and militarism, our two countries initiated, together with others, the San Francisco Conference, which helped found the United Nations. And China was the first country to sign the UN Charter. Starting from San Francisco, the post-war international order was established. Over 100 countries have gained independence one after another. Several billion people have eventually shaken off poverty. The forces for world peace, development, and progress have grown stronger. This has been the main fruit jointly achieved by people of all countries and the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, the foundation of China-US relations was laid by our peoples. During World War II, our two countries fought side by side for peace and justice. Headed by General Claire Lee Chennault, a group of American volunteers known as the Flying Tigers went to the battlefield in China. They not only engaged in direct combats fighting Japanese aggressors, but also created the Hump airlift to transport much-needed supplies to China. More than 1,000 Chinese and American airmen lost their lives on this air route. After Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, the United States sent 16 B-25 bombers on an air raid to Japan in 1942. Running low on fuel after completing their mission, Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle and his fellow pilots parachuted in China. They were rescued by Chinese troops and local civilians. But some 250,000 civilian Chinese were killed by Japanese aggressors in retaliation. The Chinese people never forget the Flying Tigers. We built a Flying Tigers Museum in Chongqing and invited over 1,000 Flying Tigers veterans and their families to come back to China. I have kept in touch with some of them through letters. Most recently, 103-year-old Harry Moyer and 98-year-old Mel McMullen, both Flying Tigers veterans, went back to China. They visited the Great Wall and were warmly received by the Chinese people. The American people, on their part, always remember the Chinese who risked their lives to save American pilots. Offsprings of those American pilots often visit the Doolittle Raid Memorial Hall in Quzhou of Zhejiang Province to pay tribute to the Chinese people for their heroic and valorous efforts. These stories fill me with firm confidence that the friendship between our two peoples, which has stood the test of blood and fire, will be passed on from generation to generation. The door of China-US relations was opened by our peoples. For 22 years, there were estrangement and antagonism between our two countries. But the trend of the times brought us together. Convergent interests enabled us to rise above differences and the people's longing broke the ice between the two countries. In 1971, the U.S. table tennis team visited Beijing. A small ball moved the globe. And not long after that, Mr. Mike Mansfield led the first U.S. congressional delegation to China. This was followed by the first governor's delegation, including Iowa Governor Robert Ray. And then many business delegations also came. They have formed waves of friendly exchanges. This year, after the world emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic, I have respectively met in Beijing with Dr. Henry Kissinger, Mr. Bill Gates, Senator Chuck Schumer, and his Senate colleagues, and Governor Gavin Newsom. I told them that the hope of the China-U.S. relationship lies in the people. Its foundation is in our societies. Its future depends on the youth. And its vitality comes from exchanges at subnational levels. I welcome more U.S. governors, congressional members, and people from all walks of life to visit China. The stories of China-U.S. relations are written by our peoples. During my first visit to the United States, I stayed at the Dvorak's in Iowa. I still remember their address, 2911 Bonnie Drive. That was my first face-to-face contact with the Americans. The days I spent with them are unforgettable. For me, they represent America. I have found that although our two countries are different in history, culture, and social system, and have embarked on different development paths, our two peoples are both kind, friendly, hardworking, and down to earth. We both love our countries, our families, and our lives. And we both are friendly toward each other and are interested in each other. It is the convergence of many streams of goodwill and friendship that has created a strong current surging across the vast Pacific Ocean. It is the reaching out to each other by our peoples that has time and again brought China-U.S. relations from a low ebb back onto the right track. I am convinced that once open, the door of China-U.S. relations cannot be shut again. Once started, the cause of China-U.S. friendship cannot be derailed halfway. The tree of our people's friendship has grown tall and strong, and it can surely withstand the assault of any wind or storm. The future of China-U.S. relations will be created by our peoples. The more difficulties there are, the greater the need for us to forge a closer bond between our peoples and to open our hearts to each other. And more people need to speak up for this relationship. We should build more bridges and pave more roads for people-to-people interactions. We must not erect barriers or create a chilling effect. Today, President Biden and I reached an important consensus. Our two countries will roll out more measures to facilitate travels and promote people-to-people exchanges, including increasing direct passenger flights, holding a high-level dialogue on tourism, and streamlining visa application procedures. We hope that our two peoples will make more visits, contacts, and exchanges, and write new stories of friendship in the new era. I also hope that California and San Francisco will continue to take the lead on the journey of growing China-US friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we are in an era of challenges and changes. It is also an era of hope. The world needs China and the United States to work together for a better future. We, the largest developing country, that is China, and the largest developed country, the United States, we must get along with each other. In a world of changes and chaos, it is ever more important for us to have the mind, assume the vision, shoulder the responsibility, and play the role that come along with our status as major countries. I've always had one question on my mind: how to steer the giant ship of China-US relations clear of hidden rocks and shores, navigate it through storms and waves without getting disoriented, losing speed, or even having a collision. In this respect, the number one question for us is, are we adversaries or partners? This is the fundamental and overarching issue. The logic is quite simple. If one sees the other side as a primary competitor, the most consequential geopolitical challenge, and a pacing threat, it will only lead to misinformed policymaking, misguided actions, and unwanted results. China is ready to be a partner and friend of the United States. The fundamental principles that we follow in handling China-US relations are mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. Just as mutual respect is a basic code of behavior for individuals, it is fundamental for China-US relations. The United States is unique in its history, culture, and geographical position, which have shaped its distinct development paths and social system. We fully respect all this. The path of socialism with Chinese characteristics has been found under the guidance of the theory of scientific socialism and is rooted in the tradition of the Chinese civilization with an uninterrupted history of more than 5,000 years. We are proud of our choice, just as you are proud of yours. Our paths are different, but both are the choice by our peoples, and both lead to the realization of the common values of humanity. They should be both respected. Peaceful coexistence is a basic norm for international relations, and is even more of a baseline that China and the United States should hold on to as two major countries. It is wrong to view China, which is committed to peaceful development, as a threat, and thus play a zero-sum game against it. China never bets against the United States and never interferes in its internal affairs. China has no intention to challenge the United States or to unseat it. Instead, we will be glad to see a confident, open, ever-growing, and prosperous United States. Likewise, the United States should not bet against China. or interfere in China's internal affairs. It should instead welcome a peaceful, stable, and prosperous China. Win-win cooperation is the trend of the times, and it is also an inherent property of China-US relations. China is pursuing high-quality development, and the United States is revitalizing its economy. There is plenty of room for our cooperation, and we are fully able to help each other succeed and achieve win-win outcomes. The Belt and Road Initiative, as well as the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative proposed by China are open to all countries at all times, including the United States. China is also ready to participate in U.S. proposed multilateral cooperation initiatives. This morning, President Biden and I agreed to promote dialogue and cooperation in the spirit of mutual respect in areas including diplomacy, economy and trade, people-to-people exchange, education, science and technology, agriculture, military, law enforcement, and artificial intelligence. We agreed to make the cooperation list longer and the pile of cooperation bigger. Just now, Secretary Raimondo mentioned the issue of fentanyl. I would like to let you know that China sympathizes deeply with the American people, especially the young, for the sufferings that fentanyl has inflicted upon them. President Biden and I have agreed to set up a working group on counter-narcotics to further our cooperation and help the United States tackle drug abuse. I also wish to announce here that to increase exchanges between our peoples, especially between the youth, China is ready to invite 50,000 young Americans to China on exchange and study programs in the next 5 years. Recently, the 3 pandas at the Smithsonian's National Zoo in Washington have returned to China. I was told that many American people, especially children, were really reluctant to say goodbye to the pandas and went to the zoo to see them off. I also learned that the San Diego Zoo and the Californians very much look forward to welcoming pandas back. Pandas have long been envoys of friendship between the Chinese and American peoples. We are ready to continue our cooperation with the United States on panda conservation and do our best to meet the wishes of the Californians so as to deepen friendly ties between our peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, China is the largest developing country in the world. The Chinese people long for better jobs, better lives, and better education for their children. This is what the 1.4 billion Chinese hold dear to their hearts. The Communist Party of China, CPC, is committed to working for the people, and our people's expectation for a better life is our goal. This means we must work hard to secure their support. Thanks to a century of exploration and struggle, we have found the development path that suits us. We are now advancing the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation on all fronts by pursuing Chinese modernization. We are committed to striving in unity to achieve modernization for all Chinese. A large population is a fundamental aspect of China's reality. But now, we have to give the crown of the biggest population in the world to India. China is now home to the second largest population. So for China, our achievements, however great, would be very small when divided by 1.4 billion. But a problem, however small, would be huge when multiplied by 1.4 billion. This is a unique challenge for a country of our size. In the meantime, big also means strength. The leadership of the CPC, the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and the endorsement and support of the people are our greatest strength. China is both a super-large economy and a super-large market. Not long ago, the 6th China International Import-Expo was held. It attracted over 3,400 business exhibitors from 128 countries, including the United States. The exhibition area of American companies have been the largest for 6 consecutive years. Modernization for 1.4 billion Chinese is a huge opportunity that China provides to the world. We are committed to prosperity for all, to deliver a better life to each and every Chinese. To eliminate poverty is the millennia-old dream of the Chinese nation. And prosperity for all is the longing of all Chinese. Before I turned 16, I was in a village in northern Shanxi province, where I lived and farmed with the villagers. I spent 7 years there, and I knew about their worries and needs. Now, half a century on, I always feel confident and strong when staying with the people. Serving the people selflessly and living up to their expectations is not a slogan. This is my lifelong commitment. When I became General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee and President of the People's Republic of China, 100 million people were still living below the poverty line set by the United Nations. Thanks to 8 years of tenacious efforts, we lifted them all out of poverty. We realized the poverty reduction goal of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development 10 years ahead of schedule. In this process, over 1,800 CPC members lost their lives in the line of duty. Our goal is not to have just a few wealthy people, but to realize common prosperity for all. Employment, education, medical services, childcare, elderly care, housing, the environment, and the like. These are real issues important to people's daily life and close to their heart. They are being steadily integrated into our top-level plans for national development, thus ever increasing the sense of fulfillment, happiness, and security of our people. We will continue to promote high-quality development and deliver the benefits of modernization to all. This is the CPC's founding mission and the pledge we have made to the people. It will surely be realized with the support of the people. We are committed to well-rounded development to achieve both material and cultural ethical advancement for the people. Our forefathers observed that when people are well-fed and well-clad, they will have a keen sense of honor and shame. Material shortage is not socialism, nor is cultural ethical impoverishment. Chinese modernization is people-centered. An important goal of Chinese modernization is to continue increasing the country's economic strength and improving the people's living standards, and at the same time, enriching the people's cultural lives, enhancing civility throughout society, and promoting well-rounded development of the person. The purpose of the Global Civilization Initiative I proposed is to urge the international community to address the imbalance between material and cultural advancement and jointly promote continued progress of human civilization. We are committed to sustainable development to achieve harmony between man and nature. The belief that humans are an integral part of nature and need to follow nature's course is a distinctive feature of traditional Chinese culture. We live in the same global village, and we possibly wouldn't find another inhabitable planet in our lifetime. As an English saying goes, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. When I was governor of Fujian province in 2002, I called for turning Fujian into the first ecological province in China. Later, when I worked in Zhejiang province in 2005, I said that clear waters and green mountains are just as valuable as gold and silver. Today, this view has become a consensus of all the Chinese people. China now has half of the world's installed photovoltaic capacity. Over half of the world's new energy vehicles now run on roads in China. And China contributes 1/4 of increased area of afforestation in the world. We will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. We have made the pledge. We never exaggerate, but we will honor everything we say. We are committed to peaceful development, to build a community with a shared future for mankind. Peace, amity, and harmony are values embedded in Chinese civilization. Aggression and expansion are not in our genes. The Chinese people have bitter and deep memories of the turmoils and sufferings inflicted upon them in modern times. I often say that what the Chinese people oppose is war. What they want is stability, and what they hope for is enduring world peace. The great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation cannot be achieved without a peaceful and stable international environment. In pursuing modernization, we will never revert to the beaten path of war, colonization, plundering, or coercion. Throughout the 70 years and more since the founding of the People's Republic, China has not provoked a conflict or war or occupied a single inch of foreign land. China is the only major country that has written peaceful development into the constitution of the country and the constitution of the governing party, thus making peaceful development a commitment of the nation. It benefits from and safeguards the current international order. We remain firm in safeguarding the international system with the UN at its core, the international order underpinned by international law, and the basic norms governing international relations based on the purpose and principles of the UN Charter. Whatever stage of development it may reach, China will never pursue hegemony or expansion and will never impose its will on others. China does not seek spheres of influence and will not fight a cold war or a hot war with anyone. China will remain committed to dialogue and oppose confrontation and build partnerships instead of alliances. It will continue to pursue a mutually beneficial strategy of opening up. The modernization we are pursuing is not for China alone. We are ready to work with all countries to advance global modernization featuring peaceful development, mutually beneficial cooperation, and common prosperity, and to build a community with a shared future for mankind. ladies and gentlemen, friends. The passage of time is like a surging river. Much is washed away, but the most valuable stays. No matter how the global landscape evolves, the historical trend of peaceful coexistence between China and the United States will not change. The ultimate wish of our two peoples for exchanges and cooperation will not change. The expectations for the whole world for steadily growing China-US relationship will not change. For any great cause to succeed, it must take root in the people. It must gain strength from the people and be accomplished by the people. Growing China-US friendship is such a great cause. Let us galvanize the Chinese and American peoples into a strong force to renew China-US friendship, advance China-US relations, and make even greater contributions to world peace and development. Thank you.
Thank you, President Xi. Please enjoy your meal.